You're listening to Tusemezane Sasa podcast that is brought to you by Zamara Foundation, a feminist organization working towards reproductive justice. This space is going to be a space where we're going to have life-changing conversations around sex and sexuality and also the struggles of women. We're going to celebrate wins, but we're also going to talk about conversations that are deemed impossible, conversations around how the rise of anti-gender, anti-feminist, anti-nonsense groups that have come together to be able to bash issues around sexual reproductive health and rights. Welcome to this and join us in this journey of these life-changing conversations. I'm your host, Wamboy Kimani, and together with my other colleagues, I will bring you these conversations with Martha Kombe and Nancy Baraza. Welcome and keep listening and join us.
So buckle up, folks. It might be a little spicy, but we promise you a really exciting journey. Either way, it's going to be a vibe.
In this season, we are bringing you 10 powerful episodes where we'll be talking about feminist twins, feminist struggles, and the fight for sexual reproductive health and rights. In this season, we are going to unpack misinformation and disinformation while amplifying the intergenerational feminist leadership and feminist twins as well. So join us as we make the voices of African women and girls be heard through Tusemezane Sasa podcast. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Tusemezane Sasa podcast. It has been a while, but we're really happy that we get to share this conversation with you. Today I'm so excited because we're going to have an amazing conversation around communication for advocacy, especially as it relates to abortion rights and feminist resistance. So buckle up because it's going to be an amazing conversation. And to help me drive this conversation, I'm joined by Lillian, who will introduce herself and tell us what she does. Just tell us a bit more about herself and then we can start. Karibu sana, Lillian.
Thank you, Nancy. So my name is Lillian Mushoki, and I like to say that I'm a feminist. That's very, I need to put it out there for everyone who is having any doubts. And I'm also a sexual and reproductive health advocate and a digital health specialist, specializing in sexual and reproductive health and rights. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for, just being here with your a lot of work. We know that this work can be inakwanga mingi, but Aki, thank you so much for just taking your time to be here. Please feel free. I don't know, inasikia kukohoa. Please feel free to just have this conversation with myself, and I'm just hoping that you will speak from the soul in terms of just your experience doing this work, and of course as a person who has done communications for advocacy, this is really impactful that you get to share your experiences with us. So to just start us off, I'd like for you to just walk us through what you've seen as emerging trends in terms of communicating for sexual reproductive health and rights. How are you seeing people? How are you seeing feminists? How are you seeing advocates using digital media, leveraging digital media to drive conversations around sexual reproductive health and rights? How does that look like within the landscape we exist in right now?
I want to start by maybe just setting the context that we are operating in very interesting times, especially because we are seeing an upsurge of anti-rights narratives, rhetoric, anti-women, anti-gender, a lot of conservative thoughts around what women should do, what they should be, how they should, manage their sexual and reproductive health and rights. And so then in this context, I'm seeing a lot of solidarity, especially from the feminists and from, just women and everyone who actually supports access to sexual and reproductive health and rights. And there's a lot of usage of digital and social media to just build solidarity, first of all, to educate people, because there's a lot of misinformation, just to try to, put pressure on progressive reproductive health rights. Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of people coming up to just assert their voices and just share accurate information in sexual and reproductive health, to break stigma that is usually associated with sexual and reproductive health, and especially in the Africa context, whereby narratives around sexual and reproductive health are built around culture, around moralistic politics, and also around just self-interest. Because if your leadership is being, I don't want to say corrupted, but maybe that is the word. If your leadership is being forced or maybe coerced to accept certain narratives because of so that they can get money, then it means that they're going to like allow some of these retrogressive issues, and we have seen laws being influenced. So there's a lot of digital advocacy happening at the moment in our context, where rights advocates are coming together to say that access should be based on the law, and then these laws needs to be based on the realities of women and girls and other duty holders who need this sexual and reproductive health care.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lillian. And what I'm hearing is it's really important. Communication is really important.
Yes, it
how
is.
we shape perceptions, how we influence public discourse on sexual reproductive health and rights, and especially abortion is very important.
Yes.
Because with narratives and with framing on sexual reproductive health and rights, then we are able to influence the perceptions of the public, how access actually even happens, because access goes beyond the legal frameworks. Without the legal frameworks could work in a utopia where legal frameworks work, and there's no there's no public buy-in, or there's no positive discourse on public access, then it means that still people will not be able to access because of these things like culture, religion, and things like that. So I just also wanted to find out from you doing this work, what is this one thing that you can say communication for sexual reproductive health is really important, because over time it has done this, or over time there's evidence of it working. Is there something that you see, or can you allude something positive to us as feminists or as advocates leveraging communication? That makes sense.
Yeah, of course, communication. One of the biggest thing that communication does is to shape narratives, and especially narratives on access, because people need information, and not just information, but accurate information on, sexual and reproductive health, abortion rights, and all that. And beyond that, people need information on availability of services. They need information on the legal considerations for accessing some of these services. So what communication then does is to drive the right narrative, the positive narratives around some of these issues, and especially because of stigma that had already alluded to. And of course, also because of the backlash that we are currently facing. So communication then helps to, help people assert their bodily autonomy. It helps people to, just have that understanding of what's in it for them as right holders, in terms of if, for example, I'm looking to access contraceptives, what does that mean in terms of my rights? And, we talk about rights in terms of the national laws and also the other international instruments that provide for, and protect our rights. So communication helps to put this information in the public and also consolidate public support in trying to advocate for some of this access to some of these rights, because like you had already mentioned, having the laws is not enough. You need also to have political will, and sometimes this is lacking in our space. So how do you build that political will, or how do you actually push for it? So you need that public support. You need people to understand what their rights are. You need people to also push for the right laws where they are missing, or even where there's retrogression. You need people to push back and say that, you are denying us, access to contraceptives. You are denying us access to safe abortion according to the Constitution. Then why are you doing this? Yet it means that there's going to be maternal mortality. Why are you denying us this contraceptives? Well, it means that there's going to be maybe an upsurge of unwanted pregnancies. Why are you denying us access to HIV care? Why are you denying us, access to everything we need? The cancers, they've become very prevalent. So if people do not understand what is available, if they do not know their rights, if they do not know where they can access these services, then it becomes a problem. So communication comes to fill in this gap in a very large way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. Because I've seen also how within our work, the way we don't have, like, the way our laws have a lot of disparities. The Constitution of Kenya that provides for consent at the age of 18, the reproductive health policy of 2022-2032, that one that provides for 2021 as being age of consent. And also, imagine at age 18, you're allowed to get married. So we exist in a space or in a country where we do not have the autonomy to enjoy freely the reproductive health that we should be accessing and enjoying. So if you're probably now with the work that we do, if you're probably married young or you're an emancipated minor, you cannot be able to receive services. And you also will not be able to protect yourself from early pregnancies until you're 21. So it does not make sense. So the reason why communication is important, then it comes to help people understand also these disparities, and also ask and ask for accountability from duty bearers as well, in terms of, do you think this is working? Do you think these laws are working? If these are the laws, what is the status of now young people accessing these services? Is it something that is actually even speaking to the lived realities? So one thing that I appreciate about communication, and even the work that also we do at Zamara Foundation, just leveraging digital media, is because we're able to show the real lives of young women and girls who were not able to access these services.
Yeah.
And now we are seeing that they're exposed to risks. They're exposed to risks of STIs. They're exposed to risks of even the HPV DNAs of 16 and 18 strains, which then predisposes them to, being at a possibility of 70% being able to, get cervical cancers and, those related complications. And then now when you get pregnant, you cannot access safe abortion services. So we're existing in a system that does not work for women and girls. So communication comes then to show that this is actually very important. And I really like that you've just, summed it up in a way that actually makes a lot of sense. So the both of us, we know that communication is important.
Yeah.
But then we've seen that there's censorship. We've seen that there's shadow banning. So I'd also like to just hear about your experiences around what you've seen on, shadow banning, and how anti-rights movements, or how people who are just against women and girls enjoying their rights, or even just young people accessing services, use social media or digital media to ensure that information does not get to young people. How have you seen that happen?
So I'll just take you back to the current politics and where we are in terms of the conservative agenda being pushed. And so this means that the big techs have also been influenced. The Googles, the Metas, they've also been influenced. So you spoke about censorship and how it's manifest, and you already mentioned shadow banning, whereby it's like the algorithm bars people from accessing your content because for some reason you're being regulated, and someone feels like you have posted things that should not be out there. And how I've seen this manifest in my experience is whereby feminist conversations around sexual and reproductive health, which are actually based on accurate information, and they're also based on the lived realities that you mentioned. It's like information that is based on that kind of information is usually blocked. People are blocked from accessing that kind of information. So you find they start by shadow banning you, whereby they're blocking the number of people accessing your information. And if you continue posting, they remove your information. And if you really push they try to push back on that, then they actually even ban your account. So we have seen when people are talking about sex, like even the word sex itself, it's considered to be vulgar. And so during the moderation processes, if you're mentioning the word sex, then you get shadow banned, or they're trying to put sensitivity tags to information, and especially on Google, whereby if you're posting information about abortion, we are speaking about the abortion pills, you find that there's a tag where they're warning people about that being sensitive information. If you're talking about sex, if you're talking about just giving information around even the basic issues of consent, or you're even educating people about their reproductive parts, which is biology. Actually, it's scientific. It will never change. It is not vulgar because it's based on our biology. It's based on our health. It's based on what we experience on a day-to-day basis. So if you're posting content, for example, you've posted a video that is showing how STDs manifest. They start putting sensitivities. If you're posting content whereby you're discussing pleasure, they put sensitivity tags. So there's a lot of that. But also in my experience working with digital platforms whereby you're trying to like provide information to people, and just like target different people who are historically marginalized with this type of information, we have seen ads being blocked, whereby you're trying to push the information to certain geographies, and especially in Africa, in the Americas, in the Latin Americas, or in Asia. Largely, there's a lot of moderation, whereby pro-choice information are usually over moderated. So if you're talking about sex in the context of Africa, so it's moderated as taboo topic. So people are not able to receive life-saving sexual and reproductive health information, and this is dangerous. So then, what censorship does then is to what the trend that we have seen with this censorship is that first of all, it is not it's lopsided, whereby progressive, accurate based information is bad, but then we start seeing an upsurge of misinformation when people are posting issues to do with the pregnancy crisis centers, which actually do not provide any reproductive health services, but they are just based on some conservative Christian ideologies. So those are the ones that are being shown. And when you resist that by appealing to the big techs like the Meta, you find that nothing is done about it. And it's because, again, some of these conservative groups they're pumping in a lot of money in the ads. So like I think in the last 2 years, they have spent more than $10 million just trying to push that kind of retrogressive narratives around reproductive health. So you find that because these big techs are enjoying that money, then they're not pushing back. And even for us, when the pro-choice groups or the feminist organizations are trying to post ads, they take your money, but then they still block your ads. So it means that they're benefiting from your work, but they're also blocking it. So there's a lot of censorship around those issues. But then also because of the laws that are being passed, especially the global gag rule, it has affected also how the kind of how people are communicating online. People are self-censoring. You're being pushed to self-censor because you've been threatened that if you post this kind of information, that if you're using a telecommunication approach to make some of these services available, then we are going to ban your services. We are going to deregister you. So you find people starting to self-censor. So censorship then it's manifesting in so many different ways, and I think it's important to push back. Of course, there are a lot of campaigns that are trying to push back. In my experience, there have been appeals to the big techs. There have also been coalition formed to have conversations with the big techs, and they have been spaces where reproductive health organizations and feminist organizations have sat with the big techs, just trying to push back and trying then to influence them to come up with new regulations or more accurate regulations or regulations that do not push back on the pro-choice narratives. So it's a long shot, but we are hoping that with time that this some of these big techs are going to listen to us, and if they don't, there's litigation. There's a lot that we can still do, but we still need to get the public buy-in. That is the most important thing, and that is why communication is important, even in this climate of censorship. Communicating, putting the right information out there, helping, letting people know what is happening, helping people understand when the laws are being changed and how that is going to affect them. That is very important in just building that solidarity for advocacy and action.
Thank you so much, Lillian. And I really just love the passion from where you're speaking, because you've done this work and you know the need. And even when you're saying that communication is really important, it's because it's actually life-saving.
It is.
Because if we do not ensure that information gets to adolescents, it gets to young people, then it means that actually we might lose them, like we see young women dying from unsafe abortion. So it's really very, very important. Communication just cannot, and it cannot also be alone. So there's also other efforts that you've mentioned around litigation. If it fails, litigation will get misogynists through mitigation, will get the big tech harms through mitigation, through litigation. So so thank you so much for that. And there's also issues around, there's also things that have been working in terms of how now within the movement we're trying to, we're trying to just ensure that we survive also. We're trying to ensure that still messages will go out, communication will go out, and young people, at least in a way or another, are able to get this information. So in terms of what you've seen working within the space, what are the creative things that you've seen advocates or civil society organizations leverage to ensure that communication goes out, that messages go out, that even if we are restricted, there's a way in which at least young people are able to access this information? What are some of those creative ways, and how do you think they have been working? For instance, things like podcasting. How do you think these are creative ways, and how have they been working?
I think now that you've mentioned podcasting, I think for me, I'll start with storytelling. I think storytelling is very powerful because it's intimate. It allows people to tell their real stories. And it creates like, stories that climate where people can relate with your story. Because sometimes when we are experiencing certain things, we think that we are the only one experiencing them. But then if someone comes to the podcast and they're sharing their true stories, and they're sharing their solutions, they're sharing what worked, they're sharing lessons, then I think that really is a very strong strategic communication tool, because it helps people. It appeals to a very huge group of people, large group of people. But beyond storytelling, I think and how it affects maybe the masses, I think also the anonymous nature of podcasts is very powerful, because I'm in my house, I can just listen in, I can watch, and so I am receiving this information in a very private way. And I think for me, that is really powerful, because it allows me to consume what is appealing to me. So in a big way, I think that is a very strong, powerful tool in helping people just to in getting people's buy-in. But beyond that, I think for the young people, having a peer-driven advocacy, peer-driven communication is very, very important. And I'm happy to say that I have been part of such processes, and especially during the COVID-19 period, where information was very limited, or spaces where young people could access information on sexual and reproductive health were very limited because of the curfews, because of all the other considerations that were there, and the regulations that were there during COVID time. So one of the things that one of the projects that I am proud of working with young people was this project whereby young people were using social media to drive sexual and reproductive health campaigns. And what was unique about that project was that the content was created by the young people, and so they were able to customize it into a language that fellow young people understood. So they were using slang, they were using memes, they were using reels, they were using like all types, all different formats of curating information, and this was really helpful. And we found that although the project was confined to certain social media platforms, the Instagram and maybe the usual, the Twitter and all that, we found that young people became even more creative because they owned these messages. And because they owned the process of creating the messages, including even doing the graphics and everything, doing the videos and everything else, they started taking this information to platforms that were not even part of the project. They started taking this information to the WhatsApp groups where they felt like, oh, I am part of this community and I think my people require this information. So they start taking that information there. People are posting on their stories, and it was very new during the COVID era. The WhatsApp statuses, people were posting that information there because they felt like, I need to reach people with this information. I believe in this information. So that youth ownership or youth-driven communication strategy, I think it was very, very important. But again, also the formats they were using, they were also very important. But beyond that, I think also value-based communication strategy is very important, whereby you're appealing to people's values. If I want to believe in the protection of my body, using values like bodily autonomy, it's very, very important. Values that help people, like bring people closer to what they believe in, is very important. So if you're talking to people, just getting them where they are is very, very important. And also like simplifying the message for them. So that, for us, the angel people, we are used to using jargons and what I think the lawyers call the legalese when they're talking about laws. You just want to show that, we understand what we are talking about. So we are using very big words to explain very simple concepts. So I think it's very important to simplify the messages. And so we've seen people like using very formats that break down complex information, whether it is the laws, whether it is the medical information, whether it is the access information, just breaking down that information into very palatable forms that can appeal to even the young people. Because again, young people, there's the intersectionality of the young people. We have the ones who have like they've gone to school, but they're also the illiterate one. Okay, not the illiterate, but they do not have like a lot of capacity. So you customize information to formats that anyone can understand, regardless of where they are in life. But also appreciating the emerging capacities. I think that's very important, especially, for example, if you are talking to the young mothers, adolescent mothers, the way you speak to them, it's not the way you're speaking to the adolescents who are not mothers. So just having that at the back of your mind during when you're communicating, so that you are addressing the unique needs, I think it's very, very important in communication. So it's really about customizing information to reach people where they are. That is the most strategic communication tools that you can use in trying to, just inform people, counter misinformation, and just like push access to services and care.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That makes so much sense, because within communicating, especially to the movable middle, the people who they do not know where they stand, it's very important to meet them at their point of values, where they are. So before starting to try to convert them, just try to understand, what do they care about, what values do they live by,
Exactly.
what are the core principles that make them human beings, and why they care about that. And then messaging around that then would be easier to move them from one point to the other. And also just narratives around, also in that sense as well, there's narratives around sexual reproductive health and rights not being African. And for a long time, a lot of people have used that to just spread misinformation about autonomy for Africans, and also just about gender in general. So we've also seen that. So if you're able to bring people close, also in the point of culture, trying to help them understand where they stem from, or where where their roots are, what is their ancestry like, and how has Africans, or how did Africans view issues of sexual reproductive health and rights before colonialism. So just trying to decolonize sexual reproductive health and rights, especially as it has been preached by conservative groups.
I like that. And I like that when you dig deeper into these anti-rights narratives, when you just dig deeper into like their messaging, you realize they're very shallow. So like you can actually use that to just decolonize what, like you say, decolonize sexual and reproductive health, just trying to people to understand then what do you mean by culture? What do you mean by religion? Because sometimes culture and it's like there's no separation between culture and religion. You know, so when you're talking about culture, whose culture are you talking about? When you're talking about African religions, whose religion are you talking about? So I think it's very good to just poke holes into those narratives and just try to show people that actually the rights we are talking about, they were actually in our African traditional communities. You know, the care we are talking about, you know, even just thinking about if you're talking about what is it called? Childbirth, something as simple as that. We have history of cesarean sections being performed in Uganda in very traditional way. So when you're trying to push narratives that, you know, there's the right way to give birth, for example, are you really alluding to the traditional way of seeing things, or are you just, you know, just basing this on bigot, you know, or misogyny? So it's good to just revisit our history, revisit what culture means, revisit what religion mean in different ways, so that we can help or we can work together with these people trying to understand what having access to sexual and reproductive health mean in their realities.
Thank you so much. And as we close up, I'd like to, you know, because this work is very personal to us. It's personal to me, I know. It's personal to all of us at Zamara Foundation, and it's also personal to you and all of us who do this work within the movement. So as we finish, I'd like for you to, you know, give us a parting shot in terms of how does this work speak to you at a personal level, and now how do you communicate when, you know, from a point of empathy, but also while also sharing information. So how do these two things come together when you're sharing SRHR? Because sharing information is education as well. So there's SRHR, education, and also the empathy that just comes from you doing this work. So how do you infuse all these areas in your communication and when you communicate?
I want to I want to maybe approach this by saying it's not easy. Because sometimes there is something as there's you can over empathize in our work, because you see much of the work we do is driven by passion. Right? And it's so driven by our realities, and sometimes there are triggers and all that. So sometimes you can find yourself over empathizing. You want to really work with somebody and make sure that they really access what they need. So, but I think the most important thing, one of the things that I've learned is that you cannot do everything. So it is good to work in solidarity with other people, but also being non-judgmental, just approaching it with values that, you know, appreciate, you know, people at the level where they are, you know, being non-judgmental, but also accepting when you're not able to do certain things, you know. So, because I have seen cases whereby someone is coming to you and they're trying to access services and they're trying to access different things, and they expect that you have all the answers. So just admitting that, no, I don't have all the answers, and I cannot provide a solution for everything, but also being able just to refer them to places where they can access information, or even just acknowledging that I really don't know. I think we just need to sit together and work this out. It's very important, so that again, you're not overwhelming yourself, or even overwhelming the other person, or even causing harm from over being empathetic. But in terms of also then ensuring that you're providing accurate information, I think it's very important to just make sure that you're using verified sources of information. educating yourself, learning never stops. Learning never stops. And especially in health, things are evolving every day. We are getting new guidelines every day. So just trying to understand what is happening in the sector and the trends and everything. I think that's very important. So that even as you advocate, even as you support, you are supporting from a point of accuracy and not, causing more harm by misinforming people. And beyond that, I think just working in solidarity is very important, because at the end of the day, we are activists. And activists it basically means that we activate action through different processes that we are part of. So it is very important then to work with other people, and share concerns with other people. But beyond that, self-care is very important. I like mentioning that well-being is very important. So even at the individual level, you need to know when you need to pull back and just take care of yourself, but also collectively, when you need to take care of others or just take care of each other collectively. It's very, very important. And I wouldn't say there's a perfect science to the balance, but just trying every day to just work through empathy, provide accurate information and work in solidarity. I think that might help in this journey.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And what a way to close this episode up. It has really been exciting, especially how you finished that. The scare, a lot of, in almost all the episodes, we've touched on care. Care is very important, because this work, we feel deeply the struggles of young people, we feel deeply the struggles of women and girls, and most of the time we want to try and just ensure that at least people are able to enjoy their lives, things like that. So we take it really deeply and personally, but we do not find ways to now regulate that. And also how that then shows up in our work is that we are, we become extremely furious, we become extremely angry when laws are not working. And then it means that we now, we're not able to fully focus on the efforts that we're actually trying to focus on. But really, this has been, I wish we had more time to, have this conversation a bit more, because communication is really broad, it's wide, and it goes beyond even what we can be able to speak about within these 30 minutes or 1 hour. So we just need to continue to affirm that whatever we are doing is enough, but also continue to do better and give our best, give the best of our time, give the best of our efforts in ensuring that the right narratives and the public perception on sexual reproductive health and rights is hard, because I think that's also one of the major struggles, beyond laws not working, beyond policies not working, being there not working. Perception, public narratives are actually, very, very important. Thank you so much, Lillian. This is just
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, your time with us. We do not take it for granted. It's because of people like you that this work continues to move on. It's because of your efforts, because of your sacrifice, because of your empathy that we're able to continue to ensure that there's liberation of women and girls in all their diversities, and they're able to enjoy to their full potential sexual reproductive health and rights. So until the next one, bye-bye.
You're listening to Tusemezane Sasa podcast that is brought to you by Zamara Foundation, a feminist organization working towards reproductive justice. This space is going to be a space where we're going to have life-changing conversations around sex and sexuality, and also the struggles of women. We're going to celebrate wins, but we're also going to talk about conversations that are deemed impossible, conversations around how the rise of anti-gender, anti-feminist, anti-nonsense groups that have come together to be able to bash issues around sexual reproductive health and rights. Welcome to this, and join us in this journey of these life-changing conversations. I'm your host, Wamboi Kimani, and together with my other colleagues, I will bring you these conversations with Martha Kombe and Nancy Baraza. Welcome, and keep listening and join us.
So buckle up, folks. It might be a little spicy, but we promise you a really exciting journey. Either way, it's going to be a vibe.
In this season, we are bringing you 10 powerful episodes where we'll be talking about feminist twins, feminist struggles, and the fight for sexual reproductive health and rights. In this season, we are going to unpack misinformation and disinformation while amplifying the intergenerational feminist leadership and feminist twins as well. So join us as we make the voices of African women and girls be heard through Tusemezane Sasa podcast.